Alright, so we're just going to take a really quick basic look at the brushes. So let's launch Photoshop. I'm just going to create a new canvas, 10 by 8 by 300. That should give me enough room to play with things. And I have my brush selected, and I can go up here and I can look at different brush options that we have. Now, just looking at the very first brush, if I drop this down versus this, you probably can't tell that much of a difference. But if I increase the size, you can see here the edge is all blurry versus the edge here being very sharp. And I can control how sharp or blurry it is with this slider. And I also have a lot of other brush choices on here that I can play with. And if I'm not happy with those, I can find other brushes up here by clicking on this gear. Like this brush. Or that brush. Now when I'm adding different brushes on here, if I click OK, it's going to replace the brushes I had currently. If I instead click Append, it will add them to the brushes I already have. In addition, if I don't like the brushes that are my options here, I can even load brushes in that I've downloaded from somewhere else, or make my own brushes and save them and share them with others. Let's just go back to sort of our basic hard-edged brush. Up here I also have blending options or blending modes, and these blending options work very similar to the way the blending layer options work. So normal is normal, but if I maybe click multiply and I switch to maybe a different color like red, where it overlaps, we're going to see the colors added together. And of course we have other ones like lighten, and if we go and add maybe yellow, we'll see that lighten effect as well. Switch this back to normal for right now. We also have opacity up here, and let's switch this back to blue. Opacity is pretty basic. It's basically just how transparent or not the color is. So 100% versus maybe 50%. And of course, if we click on here again, you get that overlap. Now, flow looks a lot like opacity, but there is a key difference. So once again, we have sort of that transparent effect, and if I click on it, we get that blending effect or that multiplication effect. But the difference is when you are clicking and holding down. So if I click and I hold down, you can see that the circles are being added together to create additional darkness. And even at 50%, it's still really close to 100%. So if I drop this way down to 17, we get a better idea. And the more I overlap, the closer it gets to that 100%. So if I drop this down to 17 as well, having the flow back at 100, you can see there is no overlap. The max value is that 17%. Now, of course, I can combine these to end up with a flow that does cause overlap, but never exceeds that opacity. Now, there are some other options in here too, but those are kind of the basics, and so those are the ones that I want to look at just right now. Now, what you do with the brush can also affect things with the pen. So if I draw a pen path on here, then I can right click on it and tell it to actually stroke that path, and it will use the pencil or whatever I want, but that could include the brush, and the brush settings are going to be whatever the brush settings were when you were playing with the brush. Now, when I was drawing this path, I also could have told it to simulate pressure, and that's going to create varying effects depending on what brushes you have. Now notice that this part is lighter than that part because when I did stroke path, it added that on addition to the original path that I had already stroked. Now the brush may seem really basic, but we've only done basic things with it. There's a lot that we can actually do with the brush, and we'll get into some of that in the next video.